Now, old people, they're everywhere. You must have noticed, but this is not a uniquely British problem, if it's a problem at all. The United Nations says the number of old people in the world is growing faster than any other section of the population. Admittedly, absurdly, they define the old as those over 60. There will be over 1 billion within a decade. Watch out. Joe Lynham reports.
In a rapidly developing world, the once yawning gap between the developed and developing worlds is closing. Where the old challenges were to simply survive childhood, the new 21st century challenge is how to manage old age. The UN Population Fund and Help Age International welcomed the fact that people are living longer, but said that developing countries had to urgently think up new approaches to healthcare, retirement and intergenerational relations. According to the report, rapidly changing demographics make the case for urgent action. A decade from now, in 2022, there will be 1 billion over 60-year-olds. And by 2050, that figure will have reached 2 billion, when for the first time there will be more people over 60 than under 15. In fact, older people, as defined by the UN, are the fastest growing age group of all. The report also dispels the myth that longevity is merely an economic problem in wealthy countries. In many less well-off cultures, young people are brought up knowing that it is their role to provide for older family members. But because that's not the case in developed countries, the state tends to have a bigger role in taking care of the old. This UN report says that less well-off countries are sleepwalking into a problem because as they get richer, they are not making sufficient provision for older people in the future.
There are a few things that we can do to minimize that problem, not to solve it, but to minimize. One of them is to raise the retirement age, which in Brazil is very low. Many people in private and public sector retire very early. So we can definitely, through public policy, minimize part of the effect of population aging.
Half of those countries where there are at least 10 million over 60-year-olds are in developing economies. In China, the world's most rapidly growing large economy, the one-child policy makes the problem of longevity even more acute and means that the country will be old before it's rich. China's fertility rate stands at 1.6 births per woman, far below the 2.1 needed to sustain a growing population. The report makes a number of key recommendations. Older people shouldn't be forced to retire by a certain age if they wish to work longer. Britain ended that practice this year. National healthcare plans should automatically include special provision for the needs of older people. Young people should be educated in such a way as to make them less economically dependent when they get older. And the UN also suggests that older people's rights should be enshrined in law to protect them from discrimination. South Africa is developing rapidly and has a young population coming through the ranks. But it's also been dealing with the effect of HIV/AIDS, which has devastated many parts of the country. That has thrown up further problems and even a grim advantage.
We've called it a kind of demographic dividend that we are reaping at the moment, in the sense that there was quite a dramatic decrease in life expectancy as a direct consequence of HIV/AIDS, and subsequently with the sort of rollout of antiretrovirals on a fairly widespread basis, we're seeing quite a substantial recovery in life expectancy generally.
Global prosperity means we're having fewer children and they are living longer. Soon there'll be more dependents than people actually working. The message from the UN for all of us is ignore our population growth today and you'll be storing up economic problems tomorrow.